Hi guys, and welcome to the video notes for Chapter 2, Lesson 4, Multiplying Integers. Make sure you have the following notes in front of you. Essential question: what happens when you multiply integers? So for multiplying integers, there's two steps. Step 1, we're going to decide on the sign, and step 2, we are going to multiply. So multiplying and dividing have the same rules for integers. Very simple. We don't care about absolute value. We don't do KFC, nothing like that. It's just if the signs are different, your answer is going to be negative. If the signs are the same, your answer is going to be positive. So decide on the sign and then multiply. So example 1, we have negative 3 times 12. Signs are different, so it's going to be negative, and 3 times 12 is 36. Example 2, negative 4 times negative 7. Signs are the same, so it's positive, and 4 times 7 is 28. Example 3, negative 6 times 12. Signs are different, so it's going to be negative, and 6 times 12 is 72. Moving on, more practice. Number 1, signs are the same, and then I multiply, so I'm going to get 35. Next one, negative 8 times 14. Signs are different, so it's negative, and 8 times 14 is 112. 13 times negative 4, signs are different, so it's negative. 13 times 4 is 52. Notice with 4, 5, and 6, we have more than 2 integers that we're multiplying. So the rules are a little bit different. You can just do the problems from left to right. Like for this next one here, number 4, I could start by doing negative 4 times 12. Signs are different, so that would be a negative 48. And then I would be multiplying that by a negative 5. And now signs are the same, so it's going to be a positive, and 48 times 5 is 240. Another thing about multiplying more than 2 integers, kind of a shortcut for the signs. If you have an odd number of negatives, your answer is going to be negative. If you have an even number of negatives, your answer is going to be positive. So like for number 5, there are 2 negatives, which is an even number. So I know before even starting that my answer is going to be positive. So just to show you, on this one, I would probably do negative 9 times negative 6 first, and that gives me a positive 54. And then 7 times 54, positive 378. So there were 2 negatives, which results, it's an even number of negatives, which will result in a positive. Now on the other hand, this last one's going to give me a negative because there's 3 negatives. That's an odd amount of negatives. So again, just showing you that that would work. If I did negative 3 times negative 4, I get a positive 12 because the signs are the same at that point. And then now I have different signs, which results in a negative, and then 12 times 5 is 60. Last one, a scuba diver descends from the surface, so keyword descends, at a rate of 7 feet per minute. What was the diver's depth after 15 minutes? So we can go ahead and make an integer problem out of this. We can use an integer to represent, descending at 7 feet. Descend means to go down, which would be negative. And for 15 minutes, we just multiply by 15. Signs are different, so it's going to be negative, and it makes sense if the diver is going underwater, their elevation is going to be negative. And so I have negative 105 feet. Turn the page. Make sure you have the following notes in front of you. Okay, algebraic expressions. So we can use the rules for multiplying integers to evaluate and simplify algebraic expressions. So for the first three ones, we're going to focus on simplifying because we can't actually evaluate them because in the first 3 we are not given values for the exponents. So on example 1, we have negative 7a times 4b, okay? So what we could do with this is I can take common terms, or actually coefficients, and I can multiply those to simplify this to lower terms. So what I'm going to do first, just to show you, is I'm going to break down this problem to each part. So negative 7a means, means negative 7 times a, and then the parentheses means times 4 times b. So if you notice, I can, a and b are not like terms, they're different variables, but I can multiply the coefficients of negative 7 and 4. So negative 7 times 4 is negative 28, and then I can write this as negative 28a times b. So that would be my simplified form. Let me show you another example. The next one is negative 3 times negative 6y. So again, if I just break this down to each separate term, we have negative 3 times a negative 6 times a y. So I can combine like terms. I can multiply the negative 3 and the negative 6, and that'll give me a positive 18, and then multiply that by y. And so that would be the simplified version. Example 9, we have 9 times x times negative 3 times y. So again, this 9 and the negative 3 are coefficients, and they're like terms. We can go ahead and simplify those by multiplying 9 times negative 3, which is a negative 27. And then we would have left over times x times y, and that would be the simplified version. So that was simplifying algebraic expressions by basically multiplying the coefficients. We also can use algebraic expressions to evaluate if we're given values for each of these. So now the next example says evaluate 3xy if x equals 2 and y equals negative 6. So first step, I'm going to substitute my values. So I have 3 times x, which is 2, times y, which is negative 6. And I have an odd number of negatives. There's only one negative, so I know my answer is going to be negative. And when I multiply across, 3 times 2 is 6, and 6 times negative 6 gives me a negative 36. That's my answer. For B, evaluate 2rs if r equals 5 and s equals negative 10. So I'm going to substitute my values, 2 times r, which is 5, times s, which is negative 10. Again, I have an odd number of negatives, so I know my answer is going to be negative. 2 times 5 is 10, and then 10 times negative 10 is negative 100. Last one, evaluate 4 times a times b if a equals negative 8 and b equals negative 4. So when I substitute my values, I have 4 times a, which is negative 8, times b, which is negative 4. Here I have an even number of negatives, so I know my answer is going to be positive. So 4 times 8 is going to give me a negative 32. I'm running out of room. So negative 32, and I'm going to multiply that by a negative 4. So a negative times a negative is a positive, and 32 times 4 is 128. So we have positive 128. Now go ahead and please pause the video, and I want you to try practice 1 through 8 on your own, and then you can resume to check and correct your answers. So pause right now. Okay, so hopefully you paused and tried those on your own, and so you can pause this right now to check your answers and make any corrections. The ones that I could foresee that there might be issues on are number 3, just because of this whole negative z. And I just want to remind you, when you have a negative variable, there is actually an invisible 1 that is in front, a coefficient of 1 that is in front of that variable. So that's where I got the negative 1 from right here. So it's negative 3x times negative 1z. and that's why it results in a positive 4xz. And I think that happens, oh yeah, in number 5 as well, if there was a problem there. We have negative 3 times 4 times negative x, but remember, there's that invisible 1 coefficient in front of the variable, so that will affect your signs as well. Alright, so go ahead and finish all the problems on More Practice, and you will go over these in class first thing tomorrow. Thank you.